The 9 Years Podcast.
Alright, welcome to episode 29 of the 9 Years Podcast, available on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud and Podomatic.com. Nick Draper here as always, joined by Stuart Deakins. This week, to talk about the FA Youth Cup game from Tuesday night, the raging ticket prices debate, as well as a look ahead to the weekend's action, birthdays game and unnecessary censors as well. But there is breaking news, breaking all over the place as we start the show this week. An announcement that the board from Liverpool have just made regarding their £77 tickets that were protested about. We're going to come on to that later, as I mentioned. But also some more pressing news for Wimbledon fans is the departure on loan of Joe McDonnell. He joined Hampton Richmond for a short loan period. I can't tell you at this point exactly how long the loan is for. But Stu, this comes as part of a number of sort of contractual matters with a number of our young players.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting time of season, isn't it, now? So we've got past the January transfer window. We've sort of dipped in ourselves and obviously brought a keeper in and a midfielder. So I suppose now we're looking at the fact of Joe McDonnell. Is he going to get enough game time? Does he really need to start playing, proper men's football? I would say he does. So it's a good move for us. I can imagine he will still train with the first team, and he's not really going. He's not going far, is he? So he's local, so we can still monitor his progress. And he's obviously there also with Tom Beer, so he's not on his own as such, is he? So
no, we're sort of thinking about. With Joe McDonnell going, I'm assuming now we're looking at James Shea and Kel Roos, or however you pronounce the name, are sort of battling it out now for a starting place. It'll be between those two. What about you mentioned there Tom Beer going out on loan as well. We've got other loan players or other young squad players that have gone out for some experience in the lower leagues.
Yes, we've got a little bit of action. So we've got, obviously, Tom Beer's gone out to Hampton and Richmond along with Joe McDonnell, and we've also got Ben Harrison over at Tunbridge Angels, which we seem to have sort of struck a little bit of a partnership with them as such, as that we obviously sent over Fitzpatrick, who had a good loan spell. He had 7 games in the end with Tunbridge, so it's a good standard. It's a good standard for them. So at the moment, Hampton are top of that division with Tunbridge in there as well. So it's good for Tom Beer, and like I say, he's going to be playing a team that's probably confident and get some good exposure. But it's a good level, and I think it's under 21 fixtures have been sort of hit and miss recently. We've had a few games called off, and some being played at training grounds. I think they want to try and get to play in front of crowds. And the Ryman Prem division isn't a bad division at all. So. Tom was involved on Saturday. They had a 4-3 win at home to Leiston. Yeah, Leiston. A 4-3 win, so that sounded like it was a bit of goals galore. And Tunbridge won 2-1 away at Farnborough, who, to be fair, you never know how good Farnborough are, because it depends who's bankrolling them at the time, doesn't it?
I'll leave you to take the flak for that one and maybe have to do an apology next week. So these are all Ryman Premier. This is Ryman Premier level. What do you think we're looking to gain from sending them to this level? I'll tell you why I asked that question. I remember many years ago, Rhys Jones was with us and we let him out on loan to Kingstonian. Rhys Jones was a centre midfield player that liked to get on the ball and spray passes about and make tick play over. Different game at Ryman Premier level when he went down to Kingstonian. Sort of lost in the shuffle. A lot more direct, a lot more physical. So for someone like Tom Beer, someone like Ben Harrison, are we looking more for the physical demands of the game? Because I'm not sure their technical ability is really good, particularly improve.
Difficult. It's a couple of years since we've come out of obviously non-league, but we sort of know the level, don't we? Because Terry Brown was a great believer in changing teams and stuff like that for certain divisions. I think he'd get some football in there. From what I remember of Hampton and Richmond when we played that level, you get some football. I think it's just mainly getting them games and getting them 90 minutes. I say Fitzpatrick went out to Tunbridge and got 7 games, come back, and we obviously see his performance against Yeovil that he come back. I think it's also some case of, I can imagine training every week and playing under 21s, and there hasn't been a lot of under 21 game. I'd imagine just training and going through the motions, having no match time on a Saturday, can be quite, demoralising for them. So I think it's nice for them. They're still training with the first team squad, so they're still getting the benefits of training with our first team players, but they get a game on a Saturday. And I think for players need games. So I must admit, I'm a lover of Tom Beer. He hasn't. I thought he'd play more games he had this year. He has picked up injuries, etc. I would hope it is more of a case of us getting them games rather than what some people are thinking of. It's, do you know what, they're going to get released at the end of the season. We don't know for definite, but I think Ben and Tom are totally different characters in different scenarios. My gut feeling is Ben will do well to get another contract at the end of the season, just because he's up against Callum Kennedy and Jonathan Meads, and I think that's overloading that position. Tom Beer in a midfield role or wide right, it's up for grabs, isn't it? So I think it's difficult. I think there's different probably reasons for the loan deals, as I would say.
Why are some of these players then not getting an opportunity, just going straight into the first team squad? What's delaying their progress or their ability to get more games in the first team?
I'll say we're at the business end of the season, aren't we? We're going for points. It's hopefully we're going for a playoff position. We have to judge it. I've said my thoughts on our academy and stuff like that. I'm a great believer, and I go quite a lot watching them. But I'm also realistic that they should only go in there if they're going to enhance the squad, if they're coming in off form. And at the moment, the only one I would say is coming in off form is Fitzpatrick. And he's done the business. Aziz, to a certain level, Aziz sort of drops into under 21 games, not as much as last season, but Tuesday he was involved in a 1-0 win against Millwall, and a strong Millwall team from what I understand. So Aziz is producing. I don't think Aziz is an under 21 player. I think Aziz is really one that can drop back in, gets his game time, because he doesn't always get game time, obviously, with the first team, depending on what front two we play. But yeah, I don't. If I was going to be honest with you, Tom Beer doesn't get into the team at the moment. Ben Harrison doesn't get into the team. And at the moment, with James Shea probably dropping to the bench and Kelly Rue starting, Joe McDonald needs game time.
We're going to look at the FA Youth Cup game as part of the show this week as well, but I understand we're looking at sort of the young players and squad and contracts and things like that. What's happened before? Like, we'll talk about this now. What's happened with some of our under-18s then with contracts? There's been some movement this week, hasn't there? I've been struggling to keep up with things this week, personally, but I know that there's been some talk about contracts, a couple of players. Yeah,
I think some, again, difficult because, we're not privy to behind-the-scenes information and stuff like that, but I think some of the contracts, maybe our hand's been pushed a little bit in terms of we've signed up Alfie Egan, and also to see Alunza, which is a bit of a mouthful. We will get. He's called T for short. We'll stick with T.
Yeah.
But they've got the contracts. Alfie Egan, not a surprise. I've heard great things about his season. Scored in most rounds of the FA Cup. Scored again on Tuesday night. A well-taken header from close range. So not surprised about Alfie. Like I say, Tuesday. I've liked him. I've seen him for the under-21s. Tuesday night was the first under-18 game that I've seen. I've seen probably about 6 or 7 of them play in different parts of games for the under-21s. And T was one that I really liked. Pace to burn, very direct, raw, needs work, but we've proved with Aziz that we are prepared to have these rough diamonds, as we call them, and get them going. I think our hand's been pushed because, of course, we've now got a bit more of a national profile with us being in the FA Cup, or were in the FA Cup, 5th round against Chelsea. So I think there was people banging around trying to get our players, and I think our hand was probably played a little bit, and I think probably the situation with Will Mannion as well, with some rumours that we are possibly not going to be able to keep hold of him, and people are after him at the moment.
Cool, thank you very much, Stu. So every week we will be trying to keep up to date with all our players out on loan, give you an update of how they're getting on, how their respective clubs are getting on, and also some updates from the under-18s and under-21s when games happen. Stu, there was meant to be a game this week, wasn't there? But it was postponed at quite late notice.
Yeah, it was, and from what I hear, I think the club, Wimbledon themselves, played a good role in this one in terms of there was some rumours around, obviously the weather around the West Country wasn't great, and a lot of games didn't survive. the weather on Saturday. But I think we pushed for a referee to get to the game earlier before the coach and people, set off. And they did get a referee and they called the game off. And I think there was some pictures on Twitter for some people that had maybe been staying in the area. And yeah, there was water all over the pitch. So unless you're going to play water polo, there won't be much football we played on that on Saturday. It does cause us a bit of a headache because now that game's been rearranged for the 8th of March, which does mean we are going to be playing Tuesday, Saturday for a 3-week period. So loads of points up for grabs, but some horrendous travel.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because on the one hand, I'm looking at the league table at the moment, and that momentum we generated has sort of stuttered a bit because not just because we had the defeat to Yeovil, but we did have a bit of a gap between the Cambridge and the Mansfield game, which breaks up the progress. Now we've got another couple of weeks without a game, so it can be disruptive on that score. Then, like you say, then you get a bit of a fixture pile up. But if you get on a bit of a run in that time, when you've got 6 games or whatever in quite a small space of time, if you get on a bit of a run, a bit of momentum, a bit ahead of steam, might take more points than perhaps you would have done otherwise. Admittedly, Bristol Rovers away on a Tuesday night does not sound the most glamorous or most appealing of fixtures, or promising of fixtures, really, for 3 points. But you never know. It
does, but it's weird, isn't it? We don't tend to win on Saturdays at Bristol Rovers, so maybe a midweek fixture. I tend
to win at Bristol Rovers.
So if we play on a midweek game, maybe we'll play better under lights at Ashton Gate. Ashton Gate, that's Bristol City.
No, it's Bristol City.
We probably would win there because Bristol Rovers would be playing at their ground. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's stop-start. It's really weird this week, isn't it? Because, like I say, the FA Youth Cup game really has stolen a lot of the headlines, and I'll be truthful, I've been wrapped up in that as well, because I just think it's it's great for the club as a whole. But sort of just doing some preparation, obviously, for our podcast, and the full table still says it all. We're still second in the full table over the last 6 games, which is why, obviously, Neil Hardy got nominated for Manager of the Month, isn't it? Which obviously went to Chris Wilder and Ricky Holmes at Northampton. Which, interesting. I don't know if you noticed, but every for the Manager of the Month and Player of the Month went to the same club in all leagues.
Oh, really?
Wow. Which is interesting. Which I suppose says it all, doesn't it? If you have a player that's on form, realistically, they're going to be doing a lot to help you win games. But full table still looks decent. Like I say, we're second in it. So I think we need to get back to league form. The game's coming up thick and fast. Luton at home is a good one, isn't it? So looking forward to that. And then, of course, we're going to Carlisle in the midweek fixtures, and we will have midweek fixtures. Like I say, Tuesday night was good. Under the lights, proper good atmosphere, and I'm looking forward to it. It's just a lot of travelling.
Hi, I'm Seb Brown, and you're listening to the 9 Years podcast, available every Thursday on iTunes and YouTube.
Listeners, as you might be able to tell, I'm not sure, we've tried to hide it, but we're very bad at hiding it. We are recording this on the Wednesday evening, although you might be listening on the Thursday. We are recording this quite late as well, so this podcast is essentially what I'd term a live podcast, because we're going to record this, we're going to press the stop button at the end and pretty much put it out for you to listen. So bear with us. If we have moments where we might say things, we get things wrong all the time, to be fair, Stu, whether we edit it or not, really. I don't think it makes much of a difference, does it?
Talk for yourself, Nick.
Well, yeah. Well, as you say that, Stu, as we were having a conversation before we started recording where you were just telling me about the loan players on loan at Hampton, and was it where were they at loan, did you say?
I put Hampton and Redbridge in.
Hampton and Redbridge, that's right, yeah.
Brilliant. I couldn't work out why Google was going Dagenham and Redbridge. I'm like, no, I didn't type that. Yeah, the thing is, we haven't played Hampton for so long, I forget what they're called. Do you know what I mean? So,
I noticed, yeah.
And isn't it, do you know what, it's funny with Hampton, just to take away the fact that I did muck up. And it's weird that, we were rivals with Hampton and Richmond for the Ryman. It was a Ryman Premiership, wasn't it? Was it Conference South?
Both.
It's both, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's really weird now that we're loaning our under 18, 19 foot players to give them match time. So weird how far we've moved on in a short space of time, isn't it?
Short space of time. Doesn't it seem like a lifetime ago now? Actually, we'll come back onto sort of non-league days and things like that a bit later on, actually, because I want to make a comment about this. It does remind me, before we get into our main topic today about the FA Youth Cup, I should do our teaser for this week for you to think about, Stu, and the listeners to think about whilst we talk about all things youth.
Yeah.
You touched on just a moment ago the fact that on the weekend we are playing Luton Luton Rovers, as you called them. Luton Town, sorry. It is hard, actually, to remember some of these names, you're right. Luton Town. We played Luton Town quite famously in the League Cup about 20 years ago, November 1996. It actually went to a League Cup replay. Wow. Could you imagine if Jurgen Klopp was managing the Premier League back then? He'd have a nightmare. He'd have kittens. Replays in the League Cup. Anyway, played Luton. Went to a replay at Kenilworth Road. We won 2-1. All 3 goals that night were scored by Wimbledon players. My question simply, Stu, is what were the names of those 3 players?
Wow, what a question.
Yeah.
Cheers for that.
I only knew one, actually, without having to double check. I only knew one for certain. But I'll tell you what, it's a great question when we link it in with our FA Youth Cup feature for today. So Tuesday night, last night, let's be honest, last night. We're sat here, by the way, I'm watching Peterborough versus West Brom on BBC as we're recording this, by the way, so I can keep you updates from that. I can also tell you, and I should have done this earlier, last time we checked as we were recording, Joe McDonnell had started in goal for Hampton and Richmond tonight, away at Leatherhead, or at home to Leatherhead, I'm not sure, and they're 2-0 down after about 20 minutes. So not the best of starts for Joe by the sounds of it. But anyway, FA Youth Cup, Stu, you went along. I couldn't, sadly. Work has been manic these last couple of weeks. I couldn't get away from work in time to get down to Kingsmeadow. First thing I've got to ask you about, 3,400 roughly, the attendance. What was the atmosphere like?
It was great, to be fair, last night. We recorded late, so we're making sure it's as up to date as possible, and it was really good. It was weird because it's a 7:05 kickoff, so I got the ground opened at 6, so I got in there at 6 just to get a decent place, really. And it felt empty, but then because you'd expect at 6 o'clock, people obviously are trying to get home from work or try and get across from town and stuff like that. Or in meetings, stuff like that. So, but it filled up very, very quickly. What I love the fact is that, I think I've done it for other youth games, is that there was so many AFC Wimbledon tracksuits with children from obviously the other age groups that were present as well. So there was a very youthful feel to it. There was obviously a lot of parents there. So my fiance did make a comment to me saying that we were sitting in the bar and it felt like a different crowd, and it probably was to a certain extent. There was a lot of familiar faces I knew, and I had a few come to me and go, "What's the crack here, Stu? Are we allowed to swear at the players and call them such and such?" And which was an interesting question. And I thought, well, they're Chelsea players, so they're allowed whatever grief with
they're all
that.
Better off, to be fair. They
are, but it was a really weird thing. But I would just say for the club, it was another great advert. It was out on Chelsea TV live, so profile again's good for that. When Alfie Egan scored the equaliser, it felt like a first team home goal, which is mad when you think about it that way, but there was a proper good celebration. And I think it was because everyone could see that Chelsea technically have an excellent team. Yes, they could pick all the best players, we all know that, so there's no surprise in that, but I've seen a lot of youth football through the years and under 21s, and technically it's probably the best I've seen. They were outstanding. But our boys just rolled up their sleeves, showed what they're about, got amongst them. Chelsea really rattled for a good 20 minutes in the first half, and the goal, I don't think the equaliser was a major surprise, and it was a shame that half-time probably did pop in, because we probably were the better team going at half-time, but they were always going to regroup, and it always felt, because of their pace and how they do stretch the game, that probably our legs were going to run out, and that's what happened in the end.
Yeah, so we ended up losing 4-1. I must admit, I've only really had a chance to see the score. I know that Alfie equalised for us, and I think it was 1-1 at half-time.
It was, yes.
How late were the final 2 goals? I think Chelsea took a 2-1 lead, but the final 2 goals were quite late, if my understanding was
correct. The final
correct.
2 were, yeah. It was up until the 83rd minute. It was only 2-1. We took off. I'm trying to think how we took off now. Forgive me, because obviously it's youth football, wasn't it? So we took off a midfielder and we took off Jason Stripp and put Antwi in to play 3 up front.
Not Will Antwi, surely.
Not Will Antwi, no. Not too sure his first name is actually. He's one that I've seen. He's a size and a half, to be fair. I a 16, 17-year-old. I'm not too sure. But he come on, obviously went to 3 up front. And we did have a chance. We had a couple of corners. We had a ball that was played into the box that a Chelsea defender sliced into the side netting. So there was never a clear chance, but there was enough to give you a bit of hope. And then we got caught on a counter in the 83rd minute. It was interesting. I was listening back to a few of the guest books today, and
hold on, stop there. You were listening back to some of the guest books.
Yeah, you can't listen back to guest books, can you? I was reading guest books today, as you do, and it was interesting because someone did make a comment which was actually made sense, but didn't really pick up at the time. But they broke from a corner, and one of their players ran the length of the pitch and played in there for midfielder Maddox, who, to be fair, come on and look decent. And he slid the ball home, but actually the Chelsea player probably ran 60 yards with a Wimbledon defender running behind him and also a player coming off. And Chelsea probably would have taken him out if it had been the other way around, because they weren't scared to break up the play or take a player out if it meant us not gaining an advantage. And I think we probably got caught being too nice. And we probably should have taken out a Chelsea defender, and we'd have got a booking. I suppose that's the kid side of it, isn't it? It's the breaking up the game. It's playing the game in a professional to win. I suppose, and whilst it's not me having a saying we should have done that, it's only come to light someone mentioning it, and they were probably spot on, but probably refreshing in a way that we didn't do that, but might have meant a difference between us maybe having a bit longer to try and get back into the game. But one thing I did notice last night, which made me which was interesting, was that there was no play acting for Chelsea players at all. There's a lot of players that have come from, a lot of Swedish players come over from their team, but no play acting, no simulation, no nothing. So it obviously seems that it sort of gets ingrained into them once they get into the sort of professional sort of game. But
maybe Swedish players don't do the whole play acting thing. I mean, that's just an IKEA, but...
But that was interesting. Like I say, there was no simulation or anything. Got a foul, got on with it. There was no Wickham, histrionics and stuff like that. And no, do you know what? We done really well last night. And losing 4-1 was never a shame. To be fair, it was a 2-1 game. We had to push. You might as well lose 4-1 rather than going out 2-1. But Chelsea had come out and said that it probably was one of their toughest games this season. And I did listen to the Chelsea coach, who said that. And it was an interesting thing. He said, we've played these cup games many times through the years, and normally if you go to a championship or a League 1, League 2 youth team, you normally win the game quite comfortably and you don't really get much of a threat. But that wasn't the case. And I think that's a really high compliment.
Yeah, that is high praise indeed. Were there anyone who in particular stood out for you then, for our under 18s?
The normal ones for me, I've seen quite a lot of. I've seen a lot of Paul Canabaye, who's a 16-year-old centre half. You wouldn't think he's a 16-year-old. If he's 16-year-old, then he's going to turn out to be a real decent defender. He's played a lot of under 21 football this year, and hasn't looked out of place at under 21. So I like him quite a lot. Chelsea had a really tricky, I think it was De Silva, who's their left winger, and I'm quite sad. I watched quite a lot of YouTube on their FA Cup journey already, and he looked to be the threat, along with a player called Ugbo, who is rumoured to be on quite a lot of money a week. I reckon it's probably very true, to be fair.
Yeah, that would be true. Yeah. Yeah,
but we had a right back in Menza who, to be fair, for the first 10 minutes looked a bit overawed, and De Silva looked like pace to burn. And from all accounts, all the goals I've seen, he's heavily involved in all of them. So, but what we did to sort of counter it, and it probably was a plan all along, because I know they worked tactically on it, was we just pushed up as high as we could. So every time he got the ball, Menza wasn't really far away from him. So it meant really that he had to do something, and Menza come out with a lot of credit. I've not seen too much of him, but right back, he had a really good game. Jason Stripp, I really like. Reminds me of Danny Bullman, a younger Danny Bullman, of course, but plays that harassing midfield role of doesn't really give you much time and works really hard, really fit young player. And then you've got Alfie Egan, who, again, I'm looking now with him getting a professional contract. I'm looking at actually where does he fit in. He's obviously a number 10 who can play in between the lines and get into the box. Seems to time his runs very well. The header he scored in the right place at the right time, that isn't luck, unless, of course, you're Aziz. A lot of fans think that he just gets in the right places. Flukily, you don't do that. That's an instinct. And Tusi, who I thought played well last night, played wide left. We seemed to play one up at times. He played wide left and pace to burn. So I think there's a few in there. That I really do think we've got great chances on. But like I say, we've got two now. I've got pro contracts, so we're sort of looking on a bit of a different light now. What they're going to do to get to the next level?
What are they going to offer? Offer us in the future, or maybe the future is closer than we think. Who knows? As we get towards the end of the season, like we were saying before, they're more likely to get a chance at that time. Sounds like it was a very nice little, without wishing to sort of, we don't really like to go down these lines, but we have to be realistic. It sounds like it was a good little earner for the club last night, with the attendance and all the other bits and pieces that come with that. Yeah,
it was a 3,500 crowd. There was a lot of kids last night, so I wouldn't say though. I would say a good 35% of them would probably be paying £2 as a kids. I would have thought. A full match programme and the club, to be fair, for people that didn't go and get a chance to get a programme, have a look. The programme's pretty decent for.
I must admit, I've seen that we did a 64-page. We treated it like a first team game, didn't we, with the programme? So hopefully there'll be some on sale on Saturday from the club shop. So I can
if you definitely get a chance. Obviously, I got mine next, so you always got to. I can always bring that along. But they really did do some good stuff. Some good stuff on the oldie. On previous youth visits, a lot on the Chelsea. It was interesting because I used to go watch a lot of youth football back in when Jason Newell and Carl Cork were in the first team, because my mate Lenny Piper used to play in the same team as them.
Name drop.
But Lenny, people who don't know Lenny Piper, he played in the same team as Jason Newell and Carl Cork, but I think went to Dagenham, dropped in lower league, played against us for
Fisher
Athletic.
Yeah.
But I just went back to when we played at Old Trafford and lost against the Phil Neville captain team, and it was just good. It was just going back down memory lane. I can still remember going to Old Trafford for a youth game, and I think there was about 15,000 fans there. Which, back then I was just like, wow. But of course, not a surprise now.
No, although our attendance on Tuesday night was 3,400-ish. Was higher than the attendance that Chelsea and Man United attracted in the previous round. So I'm not sure the FA Youth Cup, in terms of the Premier League or the big teams, is attracting as much. Maybe when it gets to the final, maybe. They still, I think, I'm correct in saying, they still do like a two-legged final, don't they, where they play it at both grounds. So maybe that's when you'll see the attendances at, I'm assuming, Stamford Bridge, and whoever else gets through to the final, you'll see them increase a little bit further for those clubs. But it doesn't seem to be held quite at this stage in the same regard as it would do for us. But then, as I say, the reason I mentioned the crowd and all the other bits and pieces is that it's money that the club would not have at all, I would have thought, budgeted for at the start of the season. Is however many people were paying whatever price, there's got to be extra money in there somewhere, even just a tiny little bit, which is all helps. Every little helps, as Tesco would say.
Sorry guys, how long are you going to be?
Talking about finances there, and the other thing we wanted to touch on today was the Liverpool protest, and the reason I wanted to do this is because it became quite a big issue, or has become quite a big issue over the following days. So what happened is, on Saturday, Liverpool were at home to Sunderland, and their fans in protest at new ticket prices for the new season that had been announced, including a £77 match day ticket for their new main stand. They felt this was extortion from their owners. They labelled them greedy using terms that I won't repeat here now, and staged a walkout. So about a quarter of the stadium, it's estimated, left the stadium on the 77th minute when Liverpool were 2-0 up. They ended up drawing 2-2. That seems a bit of an aside now. What's happened now is we're going on air, as we are semi sort of a live edition, as much as live we can be, and I'm still watching Peterborough drawing 0-0 with West Brom, and it looks very dull. Liverpool board announced that they will be scrapping that £77 ticket. Got a statement here which basically said the club owners released a statement which simply said, message received. They apologised for any distress caused by the announcement. and their dearest matchday ticket will now stay at £59. The highest season ticket price is also now frozen. It does sort of show the power fans do have if they make a stand. It was interesting though, because before the owners came out and actually said this and changed their decision regarding pricing, it brought up a whole range of issues about ticket prices. No matter that if Liverpool have said they will not raise their ticket to £77, ignoring that, Stu, their dearest matchday ticket is still £59, which is still far, far too much.
Yeah, the pricing of football it's been done before, isn't it? And they matched up what is the price for a match day. We see all the figures on that, didn't we, in terms of food, travel, ticket, and that. I think that there's so many different variations to what is actually about pricing of football, especially a Liverpool thing that you can really balance it on. From a Premiership level, the new deal that's gone in, the club that survives relegation this year is guaranteed £100 million. £100 million. That's mind-boggling. So the argument is why are the fans still paying such an increased price, and why do prices go up when that money's coming in? You've got the argument of where is it dripping down. So if the Premiership are getting that money, why are we not seeing an increase in the money that's? Because if you remember properly, the reason that there was basically the Premier League held all the league clubs to ransom about the new youth structure, where there would be an agreed fee for players who were taken. Sorry, that was right in the first place. Who were taken from football league clubs, and that was basically then meant that we would get the solidarity payments through the leagues. I find it amazing that those payments are not being reviewed when there's still more money going into the Premier League. So there's a lot of side issues. I suppose we look at League Two. Are we paying too much for our? I've paid £25 at Exeter for a seat. £25 for League Two football.
No, it's too much. It's too much.
There's loads of variations, but I think the Liverpool thing is great. I've read quite a bit actually this week. They were talking about Jamie Carragher. Why did he get out of his seat and join the Liverpool fans? I would argue he didn't pay for his seat. So even leaving early for a seat he didn't pay for, that's much really cynical. But he was quite argumentative about it as well.
No, I pick up on the Jamie Carragher point. There's two things that I'll come back to the second one in a moment with what you just said. Let's go with Jamie Carragher for a moment. It was pointed out that I don't doubt for one moment the sincerity in Jamie Carragher's actions, that he wanted to show support for Liverpool fans. I don't think he did it any other reason than he genuinely believed that was the right thing to do. What he probably hasn't factored into the point is that it's not really his fault, but he is sort of symptomatic of it. That when Sky basically got involved with football and the television money increased ridiculously, exponentially, really, over such a relatively short space of time, was that he, as a professional Premier League player at the time, was the biggest beneficiary of this, because players' wages skyrocketed to the point now where they're at such a high level. I mean, it's ridiculous, really, some of the wages these players are picking up. And therefore, that all becomes a trickle-down effect, because all the top clubs want the best players. The way they get the best players is to be competitive with wages, and their argument will be, well, we have to spend more on wages to attract the best players, to have a more successful team, which is what our fans demand. So it's almost like a vicious circle, really. And I'm not sure where, even with the new television deal, what you're probably going to see is you'd need every single club to agree to reducing ticket prices, because, well, you look at the Man Uniteds of this world, they're always going to have an advantage because they've got bigger stadiums. But with their extra TV money, added with their ticket money, which isn't, they're not going to reduce their ticket prices, are they? So they're going to have more money in the bank to spend on players. So Liverpool probably looking at their newsstand thinking, right, we need to get as much money as we can to try and tempt some world-class players back to our club, because if we don't, we're not going to be, and they're not going to be successful anytime soon, let's be honest, without the money in place. And then their fans are going to start to moan about them not being successful. Where does it end?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's interesting how the FA Premier League as a body have been very quiet on this, because of course they want the Premier League as a brand, so they want the best players, as you rightly said. My argument on this is Germany, Borussia Dortmund this week, their fans were throwing tennis balls onto the pitch.
There were balls everywhere.
And their argument was that they had to pay between £11 and £21 for an away game, I believe, somewhere, and they felt that was ripping them off. That's unbelievable. That's less than what we pay to get into Exeter, and we charge £20. Our dearest ticket at Wimbledon is £20.
Yeah.
So I think the FA Premier League as a brand don't really want. If Germany can do it, then Germany have got Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund. They're still able to produce top teams in there on a low ticket sale, and I think it's how much do we value fans, or are they called fans? Because Liverpool made the mistake of referring to them as customers, and that was in. I read an article with Martin Samuels in the Daily Mail, sorry, and he was
the Daily Redbridge.
The Daily Redbridge, and he was saying that Liverpool did. There was the American owners did refer to them as they are customers, not really fans, which obviously didn't go down very well earlier this season. But his argument is that the price. Liverpool tried to say that the reason the ticket price had gone up was because it was in a new stand, new seat, and provided an extra privilege to a fan. And Mike Sam was just quite saying, well, why should it be a privilege? Why shouldn't it be available to every fan who can afford it, first come, first served? And also the extra money equated to an extra $2 million. Would that get them the player that's going to all suddenly transpire them into the Champions League? Unlikely. So I do get a bit. It's not surprising Liverpool have backed off very quickly. I think the American owners don't want to rattle the cages too much, do they? Really, there. But there's a big picture. There's a big picture for it all. I think the German model puts us to shame. I don't see why fans are paying 60 quid, 70 quid to go and watch football. And equally, I don't see why we're paying 25 quid at some grounds that I don't believe should be paying 25 quid for.
No, I mean it is the way it works, isn't it? The Premier League sets the level and everyone sort of adjusts accordingly downwards, and with the rise in foreign players coming over, obviously more talented British, English players drop down the leagues, and of course they'll be asking for more money, which means clubs in the Championship have to get more money to match the wage demands, and that does trickle all the way down. You mentioned the German model there. Is the German model if we were to follow the German model, would we end up with a situation that Germany have, where they have one team that is just dominant by a ridiculously wide margin, and a league that isn't particularly competitive, where we have now got, I would say, in every single of the top four divisions, leagues that are ridiculously open and competitive. The Premier League, we've never seen anything like it before. We haven't, have we? Let's be honest, where Leicester and Tottenham are the top two at the moment, and realistically, we're now talking realistically that either of these clubs could win the league. Would we suffer? Would our product? Look, even I'm getting caught up into the terms of it. Do you know what I mean? Would our football suffer without the money? Would we go back to the days of having one or two teams fighting it out every year for all the major honours?
See, I'm not too sure if you will, because I understand what you're saying with the German model, Dortmund bucked the trend, didn't they? With Klopp and what he did, etc. And in the end, they still succumbed to Bayern Munich with the extra money. Yeah, there is that issue. I don't know if it would. You've got to look at this season. It's been quite interesting. The Leicester story is based on Jamie Vardy, who come through the leagues, went through Fleetwood, Taylor Gamble. Leicester has come to, has obviously come to the heights that they wanted to. Mahrez, a £400,000 signing from a second division French club, which when they said that on Saturday, I was watching the Man City game. It's unreal. Their scouting system, whoever's picked that up, needs an absolute knighthood, because they've picked up a bargain and a half there. It's probably now worth, if you're going to sell Mahrez now, crikey, you get a big return on that 400,000. But I think the Premiership now has changed. I think in the summer there was a big statement when Chelsea bid 30-40 plus million for Stones at Everton, and Everton turned it down. Now, that's a lot of money in anyone's language to turn down. But I think the Premiership now has become so rich that these clubs can turn down now. And I think there was rumoured yesterday that one of the Chinese clubs now, all these Chinese clubs now have got a lot of money to spend, bid £30 million for Payet. West Ham turned that down. So there's so much money in the Premier League now, actually, that I think it's actually interesting. It makes a more exciting Premier League, because I've got a lot of friends who are West Ham fans, who are more than happy with the squad they've got and built because of the fact that they've got the extra money. Leicester, look at where Leicester are. you've got a lot of teams now actually are bucking the trend because there's a lot of money in the Premier League now. Adebayor gone to Palace. Palace last year spent a lot of money that they would never have spent. So I think it's a case of how much more money do you need, or do you need some regulations in place? And the Premier League needs to go. I don't know how you do it, because obviously European, you can't stop European trade, or you can't stop people earning money. But I think there's so much money in the Premier League now. If you took away, for argument's sake, if you said, and I'm being very simplistic here, but if you said to the Premier League now that you can't charge more than £20 for a ticket, would that seriously reduce their income? I don't believe it would.
No, and I think I do actually tend to agree. I'm sort of playing a bit of devil's advocate here, really. I do, just with the TV money, I think, though, it would be very interesting, like I think we've mentioned this show before, to see how much the television companies appreciate the fact that full stadiums are as much part of what they offer the television viewer as the actual product on the pitch. It's vitally important that the stadium atmosphere stays at a very, very high level, and I think we'll all agree there's a difference watching, with all due respect, a half-empty stadium you might see at a Bolton on TV, for instance, than watching a game at Anfield. The atmosphere does make the game more entertaining as a viewer.
Well, it happened years ago. Years ago, it happened in Serie A when they,
yes, of course, yeah.
The Italians allowed them to negotiate their own deals, and they actually had a San Siro half full.
Yeah.
And the TV didn't have a product, because you're right. You don't want to see, we have the best atmospheres in the world. Don't charge. All right, say don't charge them to get in. That'd be crazy, because there's not enough. The stadiums aren't big enough, are they? But I just think, how can you pay 50 quid, 60 quid to go and watch a game of football? I've read quite a bit actually, which is, I think it's because to me it's quite an emotive subject of. If you go into games, you and I go to a lot of games, and we do sometimes have to pick and choose our games because they're expensive, and that's at League 2 level. If we were going to Premiership level, I don't know how many away games we'd get to go and see.
Very few.
But there was a case study again today that I read, a Newcastle fan that basically worked out how much he'd pay, and he said he thinks he felt a reasonable figure was £30 for an away ticket. But in the next breath, he then said, but if they're going to charge me 50 quid, I'm still going to go because I need my football. Mm. So he was basically held to ransom. And he said that I want to pay 30 quid, but he would pay whatever. But he did say the demographic has changed fan base, because he said what he felt was there was more teenagers that went because they're living at home. They've probably got, that income that they can, disposable income that they're not paying. And he said, there was a gap between the 20 and 30-year-olds who probably couldn't afford it, saving for a property. And then you've got your later 40 to 50s who maybe, obviously, had gone past that stage. But said that the demographic of the actual fans that are going now has changed. And really, we want the kids to be going with the families. But if you've got a family now, say you've got yourself and your wife and 2 kids, could you realistically afford to go and watch game after game?
You couldn't, especially, but that, as we say, and again, that's still trickling down to every level, because I'd still say that's the case down in League 2, where, for instance, we're travelling down to Exeter, as you say, paying 25 quid for a ticket. We're not sure where the end game lies, but I guess time will always tell, as they say, won't it? Inevitably, we will find out what the end game is for this ridiculous situation with ticket prices in this country. I must say, by the way, however, when we were talking about £30 tickets or Newcastle or whatever, or £50 tickets, Premier League tickets, if some fans are paying 50 quid a time basically to go and watch their team or whatever, it's just, it's not, for me, it's not worth it to do that every single week. It's too much money every single week. But I'll quite happily say I've paid £65 for my ticket to watch the WWE Raw television show in London in April, and I promise you that will be £65 very, very well spent.
I'll tell you one thing very quick before we go to the subject as well, which I did laugh. If you want to laugh at the irony of it all, is an interview in the Daily Mail from Harry Redknapp, who
talking about money.
It's really funny. I try not to laugh, but the basic article went along the lines of Harry Redknapp moaning about this has happened because of the amount of money that Sky put into the game, and then says Harry Redknapp is currently preparing for BT Sports returning to the Europa League action.
Brilliant.
And I was thinking, And BT haven't helped inflate the Sky price at all, have they?
Not at all.
It's funny. If you want a bit of a laugh and just look at it and think the irony, it's superb.
I can't believe Harry Redknapp would be ironic. It could, yeah.
Money transfers? Never.
Not at all.
You're listening to the 9 Years Podcast, available every Thursday on iTunes and YouTube.
Right, before we get on then to our birthdays game and our unnecessary censors, Stu, any ideas? We won't give the answers away yet, but just reminded the goal scorers on the 2-1 win at Luton in the League Cup in 1996. Have you any ideas? Maybe you want to put one name in, I can tell you, maybe.
I'm trying to think the team at the time, 96, would have been probably been a Jason Yule time, wouldn't it? It would have been... I'm not sure, to be true. I'm trying to think 2-1 fixture. If you say we scored all the goals, it probably would mean that we would have to have had a defender score the own goal, would be my logic.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm not too sure.
Give me one name and I'll tell you if it's right or wrong.
Well, I imagine back then would have been the Chris Perry partnership, probably. Would it be Chris Perry?
Chris Perry did not score on that evening. However, and we won't go into answer now, you're on the right lines with their own goal and the position of the player.
Cool.
We'll come back to it later then. Birthdays game, let's run through these very, very quickly then. I have got a footballer to start with and then a couple of females. Females of whom I am a big fan for their respective talents in their respective fields.
Of course.
Let's start with the footballer who I'm not a fan of, Radamel Falcao.
Ooh. He's got to be in his 30s. Yeah, it must be in his 30s, mustn't he? Because Falcao's been around a little bit. I'm judging 32.
Yeah, not far off, but he's bang on 30. He's bang on the big 3-0.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's past his prime then.
Yeah, well, he's pretty much he's past his sell-by date, hasn't he? Bless him. Good God love him. He probably has had a shot on target this season. Unlike West Brom, who I don't think have had a shot on target in about 6 months. They're losing 1-0 at Peterborough as I speak, and no, they haven't had a shot on target in this game either.
Oh, no, you just done a picture. I was going to check the latest score to see, because I think Peterborough... I like watching Peterborough, so, yeah. Yeah,
they're 1-0 up and actually playing very, very well. Not the stadium, London Road, or whatever it's called, their sponsor's name, it's London Road to me. I would expect it to be a lot more full than it is. But never mind. Right.
Ticket prices.
Yeah, ticket prices. You're probably right, to be fair. Next birthday, Holly Willoughby. Television.
Holly Willoughby.
Big fan of her work.
Big fan, yeah.
Do you know what? If I had to rate sort of celebrity females, on how much I rate their talents in their respective fields, she would be in my top 5.
Yeah, do you know what? Yesterday I was quite sad because I was off yesterday because I didn't want to hassle trying to get across from where I am to the ground for 7 o'clock kickoff, so I took a day off.
You watched this morning, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just doing because yesterday I went because I actually went
as well.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
I didn't watch this one because I actually left early because I popped down to the training ground because the first team were training yesterday, so I popped in for and watched a training session yesterday, which was really good. So yeah, saw a few of the first team training yesterday. So I didn't leave. I left about 1 o'clock, so I was training at 2 o'clock yesterday, and I saw this morning, and I have to say, she's effortless in terms of the show, and yeah, she's just one of those girls that you're just a girl next door, isn't she? She's I think even all the girls fancy Holly Willoughby if they could.
If they had to switch for a day.
Yeah. So she was talking about kids. They were talking about kids or something. So she's had 2 or 3 kids. So working on that, I reckon she's in her late 30s. She's probably about 39.
Yeah, you see, you're just overestimating at the moment with both of these now. She's 35. She's banging the mid-30s.
Okay.
Yes. So happy birthday, Holly.
Do like Holly Willoughby. Happy birthday.
Yes, do like Holly Willoughby. And I'm also a big fan of Jennifer Aniston.
Yes.
Who would have been in my top 5 about 20 years ago, I'd say. She's probably just slipped out for the moment, but, you know.
She's old, though, isn't she?
Well, I wouldn't say old.
She's been around for years.
She has been around for a long time. If you think Friends started in 95...
Yeah,
that was 20 years ago, 21
she's
years
definitely
ago.
in her 40s. She's probably 44, I reckon.
Yeah, 47, so not far off. Yeah, you're pretty good with those this week, actually, Stu.
Well, I've been doing it for a little while now, so I'm getting better.
You're getting the idea, and it also helps when you know who these people are.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Yes, hi, hello Ellen, who is now
With
listening.
50-odd million Twitter followers.
Yeah, not that you know who she is.
How can you have that many followers, isn't it?
I don't know, Stu. I can't answer that question.
What
Maybe
must it
one day
be-
we'll have that many.
What must it be like on her phone? She must get like a notification like every 2 or 3 seconds.
Well, I don't know, because how many does she follow? They follow her, but how
Oh,
many
yeah,
does she
of course.
follow?
That's true.
You understand how Twitter works, yes?
140 characters.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Chris, if you're listening. Yeah, don't mention the 140 characters. Right, moving on. Let's listen to Unnecessary Censors. Which, Stu, I'm very grateful for you last week when Stuart introducing our new goalkeeper, and here's what you said.
My gut feeling is, and I'm always very protective of because I just think it's a position that is very much, it's a bit of a lonely position, isn't it? It's one of those positions, especially our position. I think Shay's been decent since he come back, but the more I listen to people who keep saying that he's not the right size.
Size isn't everything.
It isn't, but if you look at I think it probably highlighted to Neil Hardy that he needs someone a bit more and if you look at Kelly Roos, he is 6'4", he's a lump, and you can tell straight away his size is a lot different. He's not as great on the floor. He had a lot to do, but there was a lot of action where he was very commanding in the air and stuff like that. So my gut feeling is, I doubt very much he'd want to come to us if he's just going to sit on the. I would say we are probably looking at the end of. I think James Shea will do very well. I think to get another for this season.
Right, looking ahead to the weekend then, and yes, I have got my fence ready to sit on in the Tempest end, or the Kenflow end, for the visit of Luton Town. Before we preview the game very quickly, tickets are selling well, and our official website even uses the phrase that, well, it is an all-ticket game, and games against Luton are always very popular. That is because Luton's is everybody's second club, obviously. Stu, your prediction, a draw? Yes, absolutely, I agree, it will be a draw. Let's end it there. No awkward questions, please.
Nah, I think we're going to win. I really do.
I really do think we're going to win as well.
Yeah, like I say, I touched on it briefly. I went down training ground yesterday, like I say, and saw. I went to go down just because I was just being nosy, and I always see a keeper, to be fair, and Kelly Roos is an absolute unit, and I think he will very quickly win people's hearts, of course, when he starts playing, which I expect to be Saturday. I expect him to be straight in. And also did actually see Callum Smith.
Callum Smith?
Is it Connor Smith?
Is this the ex-Watford player?
Oh, yes, the ex-Watford player.
Yeah, so I don't care what his name is.
So it must be set up, surely, for the ex-Watford player to come off the bench and score the winner. It's got to be set up for that, surely, Nick, isn't it?
You know what? It would make me have a wry smile on my face if that were to happen, especially after last year when David Connolly scored the injury time winner against them as well.
Exactly, and it's interesting because if you look at the head record, I didn't realise, but actually, when we beat them 3-2 at home last year, was the first time we beat them at home.
Yeah, but they've not won at ours either, have they? We drew every other game, didn't we? Have I got that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Because we in the playoff season we had 2-0 draws. Obviously, there wasn't a home game. Lost 3-0 at their place, and last year we'd done a double over them. Nick, do you remember that? We'd done a double over them last year.
Yeah, why do you say that as if I'm going to be upset with this news?
Mate,
that Wimbledon won.
Mate, does at Kenilworth Road. Of course, has gone for football in terms. Has gone to Eastleigh this week.
He has gone to Eastleigh this week as Darren Fletcher equalises for West Brom. Yes, Matt Tubbs, Eastleigh. Wow, they've got a lot of money to spend, haven't they?
Who lost the first game at Kidderminster, who were bottom of the conference. Money doesn't buy you everything.
What is it? Is it? I'm trying to think. What can we call them? I'm trying to think. Kidderminster Vale, is it? Or Kidderminster and Diamonds?
Kidderminster City.
Kidderminster City, is that what it? Right, okay.
It is. But yeah, head-to-head's quite decent. Obviously, lost 2-0 there already this season. But I just being nosy, really, looking back at the team. Of course, it was Carly Osborne who had a mare.
He had sending off. Absolute nightmare sending off, yeah.
2 yellow cards and off of him in 35 minutes. I think it's safe to say Carly Osborne has found his form now, hasn't he? So the team wasn't too different from there. We had no Lyle Taylor because he was on the suspension after the foul against Hunt, wasn't it? Say that very quickly. Mr. Hunt at Mansfield, who's now gone to Northampton, I think.
Has he really?
He went to Northampton. No, he did go to Oxford.
I think he might have gone to Oxford. I don't know.
He went to one of the top teams, which I found surprising. To be fair, Mansfield are fourth at the moment.
Mansfield are one of the top teams, sure.
Mansfield are fourth. Give in. Shows what the league's like. If they get a full place, everyone's got a chance.
Anything is possible.
But no, I really fancy us to win. I really do. I think new goalkeeper in, team are very much, like I say, good training session yesterday, really up with it, and I fancy us to win. Luton are not that good this year, to be fair. Like I say, they're below us. Still feel they're going through a transition period, and it would be nice to get another win over them.
It shall. I'll take a draw. Anyway, my updates will be available on our Twitter and through Periscope, so search for us again at 9YIS Podcast. Follow us on Instagram as well for updates too, photographic updates. Yeah, and if you haven't already, please remember to follow us on Twitter and Facebook as well. Updates throughout the week on those. And don't forget our website as well, where on Sunday we were going to for the Bristol Rovers game until it was rained off. Our 5 things we learned from the Luton game, those will appear on the website from Sunday. Luton Town in 1996 then, Stu. Any final guesses? 3 player names for goals scored in that fixture at Kenilworth Road?
1996, I'm going to probably go for Holsworth. It's definitely a centre half, so I've got a feeling it was that year was the Perry and Dean Blackwell, wasn't it? I'm going to go for Blackwell, own goal, but I can't remember the goal scores.
Well, you got the own goal correct. Dean Blackwell did indeed score a headed own goal in front of Kenilworth Road end, but Luton 1-0 up, and we got a very, very late, I think it was injury time equaliser from Mr. Stuart Castledine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, before he became a daytime television presenter. And Peter Fear scored the winner in extra time.
Wow. And Stuart Castle's kid plays for one of our youth teams now, doesn't he?
There you go. So maybe one day he'll score against Luton Town as well in the League Cup. Who knows? Maybe. Do you know what, Stuart? That was probably the last time we won in the League Cup. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Probably was, to be fair, yeah.
It's not far off, is it?
We had a decent draw, didn't we, I suppose? So.
Well, yeah, exactly. But there you go. So those were the three players that scored against Luton that day. That Luton game famous for my brother and Nick Palmerski's near-death experience. It wasn't near-death whatsoever. It's a story we had where they were apparently confronted by an angry Luton Town supporter and almost pushed over a bridge to their imminent death above a roundabout, which I've been assured was about 100 feet in the air. I lived in Luton, trust me. I walked over that bridge all the time. It's about 10 foot. Honestly, they'd have been fine. Nothing like embellishing a story.
Very quickly before you wrap up, Nick, by the way.
Yes.
Fixtures for this Saturday.
Some big ones.
I didn't realise, actually. There's quite some decent ones. Leyton Orient versus Northampton.
Cobblers.
Plymouth Mansfield.
Yep.
Pompey Bristol Rovers.
So it's a big weekend.
Some decent fixtures there, isn't there?
The league's still a bit ski-whiff, though. Ski whiff, what a great term to come out with. I don't have time to edit that out to make myself look any better. I have to stay in. But there's so many games in hand that many teams have. I think we've got games in hand on Luton to pull further away from them, and Carlisle have got games in hand on us, and it's all very messy at the moment. So,
and a 6-pointer. Interestingly, Hartlepool, who sacked their manager today, are home to Yeovil.
A long journey for Yeovil, and Ronnie Moore, Hartlepool sacked him. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I'm surprised.
Paul Clement at Derby got sacked in the week as well. It's ridiculous, honestly.
For being fifth. I must admit, Ronnie Moore surprised me because he had a really good time at Tranmere. Obviously, he got involved in that bit of the scandal, which Tranmere didn't stand by him for, and I thought he'd do a good job at Hartlepool. And they're on my outside tip to do well this year, but
it's not happened.
Shows much I know about football.
Yes. Yes, you're right. Oh dear. Okay. Well, anyway. Well, thank you very much for this week, Stu. I think that we've covered everything we need to cover.
Thank you.
As I say, remember to follow us on Twitter, 9YIS Podcast, and on Facebook as well. And we'll see you next week, where it's half term. So I shall actually sound like I've had some sleep or something, and hopefully we'll have some first team football to talk about as well. But please join then. We shall see you next week.